What's happening? What's happening, y'all? My name is Huncho. Y'all, I don't even feel like I need to tell y'all at this point, but I have to, just in case we get some new people here. You don't know me, I don't know you. This is our first introduction. I'm your boy Huncho. This is my guy.
They don't know who we be. Siriaco, call me Rocco in the fantasy streets.
Man, this is take motherfucking 3 of episode 45. We tried twice yesterday and we back at it again today. Trying to
Oh, it's
get this
Mr.
episode going down.
I was Mr. Roboto yesterday, man. I was like stuck in the
I'm telling you,
Matrix.
we've been having technical issues. We've been having goddamn AC issues. It's been a long day for me. Last night, AC ended up going out for the next almost the whole day waiting for the technician was a wonderful guy. Shout out to him for getting our AC back on because boy, if y'all don't know, I live in South Florida and it was starting to get quite hot up in this motherfucker. I'm not gonna be lying to y'all. Had me thinking like, we need to get this joint fixed ASAP. Nevertheless, we got it fixed. We're back at it. I feel great. Rocco, how you feeling today, my G?
Oh man, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a low energy. Stayed up late to watch the Lakers game, and I'm not on the East Coast, but even on Central, that game ain't going off till 12 o'clock. I was a little energized after the game. Finally got into a good spot, laid my head down, and then the fucking dog started barking his ass
Oh no.
off.
Oh no.
Whew! I wanted to dog you abuse. I'm not gonna dog you abuse you, but you made me mad. I need my sleep, bro.
I feel you on that one. I woke up after one and I tried fixing it. Not even fixing, trying to troubleshoot the AC myself on the phone with customer service of it's like our security system, but it also handles our thermostat as well. Trying to get this motherfucker to kick on. It ain't kicking on. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm starting to get pissed. I want to be in sleep. I want to be in bed. I finally go in bed because I'm like, this bitch ain't coming back on. Lay myself in bed. Next thing I know, I gotta wake my ass up because it's time to take the kiddo to school. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all,
Man,
but
that
but
is
I'm
the
good.
worst falling asleep with no AC. Like, you could, no blanket, no comfort, just sweat. Just sweat.
I'm, t-
Can't wake up. Can't wait to wake up and jump in a cold shower.
I'm telling you. Actually, funny part is I took a hot shower today, which felt great coming out because it was a little bit more steamy than it was like the air outside, and I also have the fan going. Nice little breeze. I'm not going to give y'all that type of visual, but I'm just saying though, it felt nice and good on the body. Let me tell you. But I got some.
Fourth in fantasy after dark for the ladies.
I'm I'm telling you. I'm saying. But today was a good day. We're between all the muck and all the heat, all the bullshit in the last 24 hours. One thing that I can proudly say is that I released my baby, something that I've worked hard on, something that I spent a lot of my time building out and getting ready just for tomorrow were my 2025 pre-draft NFL rookie, wide receiver, and running back rankings. I did 34 receivers ranked, and I did 28 running backs. And then I also had a section where I gave a few guys for deep taxi stashes. And I can talk about them a little bit. Might could be a little bit of controversial. One thing that I will say, I'm not somebody who looks at the consensus board and make my board based off those. honestly, I go look at the film, I go look at the analytics,
Mm-hmm.
look at the full story of how I like to evaluate wide receivers and running backs, and I created my own rankings based on those feelings. And then also threw some data in there to backtrack what I'm also how showing the prospects as well. So, if you haven't already, I will have that in our description of this channel for you to go view yourself. And if you think that's going to give you any type of possibility of sniping me, let me tell you, I always think ahead of the box, baby. And this is pre this is always pre-draft. Things don't change before after draft, post-draft. You can think you're going to be able to snipe me my rankings. You think you're going to hurt me, not knowing I already had a plan B, not knowing I already know the pivot if this person is going. No, when like I said, I ranked 34 receivers, 28 running backs, but I looked at over 100 prospects in that time of trying to rank these guys out. So that does one thing I can say. It was a lot of fun. Um, it taught me. I learned a few things throughout my film process that I feel like I have a better eye on. And then also, it was just a fun time in general. It's very tedious. It was a lot of work on the back end just to get to this point. But nevertheless, this was the most extensive work that I put forward to when it comes to my rankings. Hopefully, you all enjoy those.
How do you separate guys that are like super close for you?
So when it and that's why I shoot to my tiers just in case someone doesn't really agree with my actual spot for them, whether it's wide receiver four, RB2, you know, wide receiver six. I will put them into tiers to where they you can there's a discussion to where if you do have this particular player ahead in your personal rankings, but they're in the same tier, that still works for me because like right now, and for my RB rankings, I have Ashton Genty as the only tier one running back. But then in my tier two rankings, I have Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, Amarion Hampton, and Quinshawn Judkins. Those guys range up my tier two and can be flip flop to wherever flavor that you honestly see in your own personal rankings. So let's say if you think Travion Henderson is RB2, that's cool. Because one, I still have Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson in the same tier. So those guys can be, uh, switched back. What I really stood on was what I watched on film. And then I
Mm-hmm.
backed that up with analytics. I backed that up with the stats that I saw. Why, like, for example, a lot of people, since I released my rankings, have respectfully hopped on me about my Caleb Johnson RB2 take. That's I promise you, and it's probably not going to change throughout my whole process, and probably not going to change after the post draft. But the reason why I love Caleb Johnson, one, when I saw him film, I saw a guy who is patient. I saw a guy who has great vision. I saw a guy who has a very uh, his first step is very deceptive. I think he's actually is an underrated athlete on the field. And then one of some of the things that I look into is fumbles. If I value running backs that don't fumble the ball, Caleb Johnson had zero.
Mm-hmm.
I value one thing I do look at when it comes to good or great running back play. I want to see from somebody who I'm looking at for the most part their yards per carry in the sixes. That gives me a good elite range of a guy is a who I would see in that range. Do they have to have a 6 yards per average? No, they do not. But I do like the higher the yards per average is something I look for. I look for yards per contact, yards after contact per attempt. That's up
Mm-hmm.
there. I look at missed forced tackles. I look at breakaway percentage, which Caleb Johnson was ranked very highly among those. So I love Caleb Johnson. That's what stood behind my reasoning for having him as RB2. But I'm not going to argue with you if you have Travion Henderson ahead of him. I'm not going to argue with you if you have Amarion Hampton ahead of him. And I wouldn't argue against you if you have Quinshawn Judkins ahead of him because they're all in the same tier. Does that answer your question, my boy?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And to your point, he's sixth in elusive rating per PFF, which measures the success of a running back
Mhm.
outside of blocking and independent of the blocking that's
Mhm.
available to him. So
Hell yeah.
yeah, yeah, he's a a tremendous prospect. You know, no matter what metric you look at it, I think people that are trying to detract from him, they do it because they say that he ran slow at at the underwear
Mhm.
Olympics, or a lot of people say that he's got more build up speed, so that they worry about him if he's not in a wide gap scheme.
Mhm.
Do you think that he would be successful in a multitude of schemes, or do you think he needs to kind of stick in his lane and be in like a Shanahan type of system?
I think that it will obviously he was in a zone type scheme. He ran a lot of zone actually compared to gap plays, which was one of the things I wanted to have on my rankings. I wanted to have that percentage of or numbers of when they're running in the running gap plays compared to
Mm-hmm.
running when they're running zone plays. Like with Ashton Genty, we saw that he ran a good healthy amount of both zone and gap plays, which I thought was really good for his profile in my eyes because he's scheme versatile to where it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. Well, we've seen that he can perform in this type of offense, and we've seen him uh, be able to thrive in this type of plays when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to runs. So that's why
And to that point,
mhm.
also according to PFF, 191 runs in zone and 48 in gap
Yeah.
plays. So that's basically a four to one ratio
Mhm.
as far as the type of plays run.
I think Caleb can survive in both. He can do both at a good level. Maybe he's better at zone runs, of course, which goes to, you know, him being able to use his decisiveness, him being able to use his I think deceptive speed that he has. He's much faster in games than he was at the combine. One of the we've spoken on a little bit, or one of the Twitter pages that we found recently, but they had him in the 98th percentile in in-game athleticism out of
Wow,
4,800 running back
that's
prospects. That's very
real
noteworthy.
analytics, I believe.
Thank you, Real Analytics on Twitter. They had him on the
REEL.
yep, and they had him in the 98th percentile out of 4,800 prospects ranked. So that's when it goes to Caleb Johnson, he wa- he's going to be one of the guys, and we were basically speaking on our guys or who we're going to be coming out of this draft with, no matter what, no matter where they land, no matter what situation they end up going in. That's how much I believe in Caleb Johnson, and this throughout the process, he was one of my early evaluations. He was at
Mm-hmm.
true. He was one of our early Devy players of the week when
Fuck
we
yeah.
were So we've seen plenty of Caleb Johnson's film at this point, and till this point, and throughout all my evaluations, through all the running backs that I was able to study, I still came away with Caleb Johnson as RB2. Now, the other guys, other people, they love to get combine, hype, everything, speed. They fall
Mm-hmm.
in love with those guys, and That's okay too. But the process, the film shows to me at least, Caleb Johnson, RB2, dying on that hill. If you don't like it, that's okay. Fuck yourself. And I'm just, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding though. But I'm studying really hard. That is a hill I'm dying on.
Hey, before we jump off of these top five-ish running backs, I believe it
Mhm.
is.
Yeah,
Um, a guy I kind of want to touch on. I know, a previous guest, Debro, wasn't the biggest fan, but Quinshawn Judkins still landed in your top five.
you did.
Um, one of the things I fell in love with early, besides some of his early film, and I know, based on some of the things we saw, he ran a lot better when he was the man at Ole Miss and he was getting all the carries. It seemed like, maybe he's more of a rhythm runner, and maybe that's why, he didn't show out as much
Hmm.
sharing the ball at Ohio State. But I mean, you were looking at a guy that had 1,500 yards as a true freshman, so that should go. That should be part of the evaluation process. But what kind
Agree.
of kept him in the top five for you?
With Judkins, and I remember watching him last about 2 years ago. Really
Mm-hmm.
started to dive into his film about a year ago, and I kept saying to myself, "I'm going to need to have to draft this guy somewhere early in the first round because he is that talented." Now we've had other guys show out this year, and he ended up going to a situation where he did end up sharing the backfield, so he didn't get as many opportunities as the other top running backs in the nation. But and one of the things that has been talked about him the last few days is his able to make people miss, being able his yards after contact
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
are haven't been the greatest, and something that with me at least with Judkins is that one, he's still young, and we kind of have to look at the his traits that he does have. I'm not saying he's the most complete running back out there. I don't think none of these guys, or except for maybe Ashton Genty, he comes very close. None of these guys are in the Bijan Robinson, the Jameer Gibbs esque of tiers of guys, right? I put
Mm-hmm.
even respectfully would put more respect on Brees Hall's name and say that he's coming out was a special guy compared to some of these running backs this year. Nevertheless, I will say about Quinshon Judkins is he reminds me a little bit. I don't want to be very, very, very careful when I say this because people are gonna, you know, in a way, take it and run with it. But the way he goes about running, the way he goes about his running style, the mannerisms when he has the ball in his hand, very much has shades of Marion Barber to me. And
Oh,
shout
former
out
Cowboy.
former cowboy, and he has grit to him. And what now is he the most wiggle wiggle, shake it, jiggle jiggle type of running back? No, no, he doesn't have that in his arsenal. Mind you, this kid's rock. Whoa, pause. But this kid's rocked up. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, he's like six. Once again, he's like 6 foot, 220 some pounds. He runs a 4.4. He shows you the explosion in his testing. You see the explosion when he's running the ball. Now, I do think he doesn't have that elite second gear
Mm-hmm.
as he will get caught sometimes, but nevertheless, he's very much serviceable. When I was looking at these other guys, mind you, I have RJ Harvey right behind him. I have DJ Giddens, Damian Martinez, Rashard
Mm-hmm.
Smith, Cam Scatterbo. When I was looking at these guys, I'm like, do any of these take him out of this tier two? when I'm looking at this tier two of Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, Amarion Hampton, do these guys, could I put these guys, these rest of these guys in that tier and feel comfortable? That's kind of was the decision maker for me, which had me
Hmm.
go with Quishon Judkins at RB5. I still have amounts, enormous, respect for his game and what he could be. There was some points where Quishon Judkins was pushing for RB2, RB3 throughout the
Early in the
draft
process,
process.
he was my RB2.
Yeah.
I kind of fell back on it. Like we said, some of his metrics aren't the greatest. 25th in forced tackles, 44th in elusive rating, 69.3, nice,
Hmm.
and 57th in yards after contact per touch. So yeah, some of those numbers are concerning. But I think to your point, um, he has better size, better speed, and better production. He's just a better athlete with better
Hmm.
earlier production than the next group of guys. And
Yeah.
I think that's the point we were kind of getting to. So yeah, I can agree with that. But I do love me some R.J. Harvey.
Yeah, you hit it. Like I said, you hit it right on the head with some of the metrics and the running backs that I do have ranked. He had tied for the worst yards after contact per attempt. He had, I think, the worst elusiveness rating of the group.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, it was
and
44th. I mean, there's not
uh,
44 running backs that are going to get make teams after this draft. Probably
I'm
even
telling
in this
you,
type of draft.
when I saw that, I was like, "Ha, interesting." It and when
It's
you
concerning.
it's a little concerning especially when you put it all. Well, yeah, when you put them all the data on a spreadsheet and you're looking at how to tier these guys, with those when that top five of running backs, it's an outlier. I will say some
Mhm.
of those metrics are a little bit outliers, but what I do still like relatively to the group, he still had a decent amount of 15-yard runs. He still had a relative amount of 10-yard runs, and yet we also got to keep in mind that he was split in the backfield. So we got and then he also posted a receiving grade of 72.3. So he does show that he can be used in the a pro game in the receiving game, and I think we have seen him be able to. He has shown at least the ability to be a one first down, second down type back, and sometimes a third down back depending on the situation. But I think his running back mate Trevion Henderson does that. The a third down type of back ability, passing game. I think he's
Mhm.
better in that aspect. But nevertheless, Quinshawn Jenkins is still a good prospect. But you did talk about R.J. Harvey. What do you like about R.J. Harvey? And I'll get on my spiel because he is another guy that I could see myself coming out a lot of in these drafts.
Uh, I just I just like the way he can create. That's what I kept writing down. Just the way he can, his lateral agility. He's got good top end speed as seen by his 4.40, 40, which
Hmm.
does translate to the field. I think he still has some upside as far as being a pass catcher. But to me, you know, the league is kind of moving to some of these smaller backs
Yeah, some big ones.
that are
Yeah.
elusive, that can get behind their blocks and kind of get lost in the shuffle and come
Hmm.
out the other side with a big play.
Hmm.
He still has a forward lean. I just like really I just like his movement abilities more than anything. But why do you have him at 6? I was a little surprised to see him
No,
kind
I,
of, right after that big five or so.
I gotta go against the grain, go against the norm, and I 100% would like to note this out there. I do not work off of, once again, if I might, and I also might have tapped onto this in the beginning of the video. Once again, I do not, I repeat, I do not go off of the consensus boards. I do
Hmm.
not give a fuck what they say. All right, they can have their rankings. I'm gonna have mine. What do I like about RJ Harvey? Let me tell you, once again, Rocco hit upon it. He ran a 4.4 that is explosive for his size. He had a rushing grade of 89.5. One of the things that I very much stood out about him was he had a yards per average of 6.8.
Whew.
That 6.8, that is beautiful. To go with 22 rushing touchdowns, only two fumbles, so it's still good there. He had not, relatively for the group, still a good yards per contact, yards after contact per attempt. And then when you're looking at looseness rating, you're looking at 10-yard runs, you're looking at
Hmm.
the 15-yard runs. He holds up very well in those regards. And another one is he had a 1.39 yards per route run to go with, along with a 62.2 receiving grade, which I think was a little low. He
And
wasn't used. Go ahead.
go ahead. Yeah, I couldn't access. I had it pulled up, but
Hmm.
some of the other things that I really like. The guy had, let's see, he was ninth in elusiveness rating.
Dog.
Yeah, yeah, that speaks to his ability to create. He also had nice 69 missed forced tackles, good for
That's
seventh
what he did.
in the nation, and
Hmm.
he was a volume back this year. He had almost 1,600 yards and 22 touchdowns. So he has the
Hmm.
raw counting stats. Any way you look at it, he was amazing this year. He was 11th PFF run grade. Just he's just an elusive back. And one of my comps to him is a slightly smaller Alvin Kamara.
I like it. I can get jiggy with that one. And with RJ Harvey, a lot of people like to blow his age out of proportion. Like, we're talking about a running back here. One, the shelf life of a running back in the NFL is already fairly low. So a lot of them, there's very, at this point, few that make it to a second contract with the same team. They usually end up going to a new one. But we are in a new era where RBs are starting to get the love that they should have been getting for the longest time anyway. But with RJ Harvey, I'm not worried about his age. It really doesn't matter with the RB position. And also, he's shown that he can stay healthy. He has a very compact build, which
Hmm.
I think will serves him very well in the NFL. He's a very chiseled type of guy, so he's explosive. I think he's one of the better people at making defenders miss, and whether it's going through them. And surprisingly, he will drop that shoulder on you if he needs to. He is. I think his stature helps him out when it comes to running behind a big offensive line. He can
Hmm.
get lost behind the line a little bit to the point where you lose him, and then now he's breaking off a 30-yard run, a 40-yard run to the house on you. So, and also I think he was underutilized in the passing game. I think he could have been used a lot more actually, and they would have had a lot of great results.
Well,
So,
well, I mean,
shout out
20 catches in a year kind of shows that he can do it. That he just needs to get peppered a little bit more.
100%.
But he definitely definitely can be used in that way.
And RJ Harvey, is in that tier three of guys, and that is a relatively large group for me. It goes RJ Harvey at RB6, DJ Giddens at RB7, Damian Martinez is RB8 because love our boy Damian Martinez, Brashard Smith at RB9, Cam Scatterbo at RB10. I know some of y'all might kill me for having Cam Scatterbo so low. Well, so low. And don't get me wrong, I feel like he had good film as well. He's very impressive at his limb strength,
Hmm.
flexibility, and the way he's able to break off runs, make guys miss. I think he's a whole total weapon.
I
But
think I'm
uh,
coming around on Scatterboo. Just his,
same thing.
he's just like
Hmm.
you know, like who's that guy? Like a muscle hamster. He's just a small guy, but he's always gonna win the
Doug
leverage
Martin.
battle. Yep, he's always going to win the leverage battle, and he's an elite passing game weapon, which will get him on the field early on, even if the team has a first and second down runner.
Yeah.
Um, I will say I will push back a little bit. You notice your rankings, and I don't have a rankings yet, but I
Lay it on
wasn't
me.
really in love. I wasn't really in love with DJ Giddens. I wasn't a big fan of the way he handled contact. It seemed
Mm.
like he just kind of went down a lot, or he would try like a half-hearted kind of spin out of it. But he's an excellent athlete,
Mm.
and if he gets on the right team, he can have like a Chase Brown type of upside. But I think compared to some of the other backs in this class, I think that's what kind of pushed him down a little bit for me. But what do you see with him that has him at what running back 7 for you?
Yep, he is my RB7, and what I like about DJ Giddens is once again, if you look back at that yards per average, it's in the six range, 6.5 to
Mm-hmm.
be exact. Really love that from him. He didn't have as many touchdowns as we see from the guys in that top five, top six area, but what I will say, he still had a pretty good yards after contact per attempt at 4.16.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
I'm seeing
then,
that.
what I did like about his testing, if you look at his build, 6 foot, 212 pounds, he ran a 4.43. He had a vertical jump of 39.5 inches, a broad jump of 10 feet, 10 inches, short shuttle 4.33. What I like about DJ Giddens is that he has the deepest, and I mean the deepest package when it comes to chaining moves together and making someone
Okay.
miss. And he gives a little bit of that LaShawn McCoy type feel when he's running the ball. He's not as LaShawn McCoy was a tad bit faster, tad bit more elusive. I'm saying I won't even say tad bit more elusive. I'll say just a little bit more than tad bit elusive than DJ Giddens, but nevertheless came impressed with having a 54.9 breakaway
Mm-hmm.
percentage to go along with the good healthy amount of zone runs compared to 112 gap runs. I like me some DJ Giddens.
I'll
Now,
have to revisit the tape on him because maybe the game I was watching wasn't his best, but
he's a
that's
tough
very
son of a
impressive.
bitch. He's a tough son of a bitch to tackle. If you
Okay,
cut on
okay.
that Colorado, if you cut on the Colorado game that he had
Taking
against
notes
them,
here.
he made Shallow Sanders touch earth. I'm telling you, he had that boy grasping for air the whole game. It was looking, if any scout were to turn on tape of when they're trying to evaluate Shallow Sanders, I hope they take out the Kansas State film because the way that DJ Giddens was making that boy look was not good. So I'm a whole firm with DJ Giddens, and this is once again, it goes back to tiers for me. So that it is a large tier between RB6 and then RB13, where you could shuffle those guys up and down if you want, just depending on what you're looking at per se. But because once again, Cam Scatterbo did have a 94.6 run grade. It's hard to deny how great that he was on the field. It's hard to deny. That's also hard to deny of him, Cam Scatterbo having a pretty decent receiving grade as well at 79.8. He had a
Hmm.
yards per route run of 1.95. He had 103 first downs, which I believe would have been second in this class. And he had the second most missed forced tackles, only second to our boy Aston Genty. So I do still got love for Cam Scalabo. But one, just looking back at it, it seems like he has just a few off the field issues where he might not be the best teammate. He did run a 4.65, which nevertheless is not the it's not the end all be all, I will say, because that's not how he wins, right? He's
Hmm.
not a burner. Never thought he was a burner. I was really hoping he would run in the high 4.05 ish, but he runs in the mid 4.6s. Nevertheless, he did have a 39.5 vertical jump. So you still see the
Bursty.
explosion. Right. You still see the burst in there. So
Hmm.
nevertheless, I still like me some Cam Scatterbo. I think when I first started my evaluations, he might have been around that RB7 ish range. But I was just looking back at Brashard Smith, who I have him high at RB9 because he is one of the best running backs to where he is really good at running, but he is also a really good receiver out of the backfield as well. I have him a little bit over Cam. He's more explosive. I think Brashard Smith has some of the actually the best acceleration next to DJ Giddens when it comes to getting to top speed as quickly as they can and maintaining that speed throughout the
Yeah.
run
He's a race car that goes from 0 to 60 really fast, right?
really fast. So I like me some, when looking at that tier three, I think that's going to be really the sweet spot where you
Hmm.
see guys that could be whether it's that second round to third round of guys with RJ Harvey. You could see him going in. I could see him going in that second round to third round. DJ Giddens, I could see going in that third round, unless someone really likes him in that late second. Damian Martinez in that third round. Brashard Smith in that third round. If it's Cam Scatterbo, it's one of those guys where the hype is so big for him. I could see him going in that second round, mid to the late second round, because people really like him, depending on the landing
Man,
spot.
that first time he trucks a motherfucker in the
Yeah,
preseason, you gonna get a first round pick for that
I'm telling
dude.
you, I'm telling you, yo, it's
From a certain subset of football fans.
somebody's gonna fall in
White
love with him.
boys.
Yeah,
White.
someone's going. He runs the ball. Like if you're hilarious as shit. Yeah, somebody's gonna really
I'm
love you.
selling. I'm selling it based on the pictures y'all got on y'all sleeper profile.
No, he
Chad, I'm looking at you.
he's gonna be one of the good peoples where you're going to get a if all well ends well, he's able to stay healthy. You don't have to if he keeps everything good because I have heard he likes to party. He is a frat boy, so you have to manage that a little bit. But if he's able to keep that all in check, I still think there's room. There's a world where Cam Scatterbo is somewhere along where that RB6, RB7 type of range.
Yeah,
But
it's
basically, he's at. I couldn't have him outside that top 10. He had to be in that top 10 for me.
it's a thin line between confidence and cockiness. So either he could be a dickhead or he can have aura. We're gonna have to see. We're gonna see pretty soon because if teams really think he's not a guy they can deal with, we're gonna see his draft stock slide and slide for a
Mhm.
guy that you would think, based on his play, would be a third round pick at best. If he starts going in that fourth or fifth round, or even later, it's one of two things really. It's teams that think he's a dickhead or an asshole, or just a hard personality to manage, or they're just gonna think he's too small, which I
Yep.
think is
Well, I
kind of
mean,
funny because these smaller backs are in vogue, and a guy that can be going in the top 10 is the same height as him. So um, I don't really buy that all the way.
I
So
don't think
I
he's small
guess
at all. Yeah.
yeah, no, he's big enough. He's
Yeah,
you
good.
know
Good feel.
5'8" and
Yeah.
210. That's a big ass dude.
No, I think he's 5'10", 5'10", 219 from
Oh,
the measurements from the NFL Combine, and that's just good enough for me. I think that even might be pushing it. He might be I think it's rounded up actually. He might be 5'9" and a half, and that's why I did 5'10", so 219. But Hey man, that's the thing with him is he's not going to be one of those guys once again that wins off his athleticism. He just
Hmm.
likes to run through shit. He likes chaos on the field. He likes being able to put his helmet in your chest, and that's why Cam Scatterbo is up there. And then if you're looking at the rest of my RB rankings, so we could get in a little bit into the wide receivers a little bit further. You got Devin Neal, Bashul Tootin, and Dylan Sampson that round out my the rest of my tier three. And I'm a little lower on Dylan Sampson than other people, but Bashul Tootin, I heard some noise about my Dallas Cowboys favoring him and liking him.
Hmm.
I would absolutely love him in this offense. He would be their speed guy. And then we were talking about this a little earlier today about how impressive his actual yards after contact is for a guy who is a speed who we would consider a speed guy being 5'9", 206. He ran a 4.32. He had a vertical jump of 40 and a half. And then to put along, he had a yards after contact attempt of 4.40. Impressive. Once again, Quishon Jenkins had a 3.04 yards after contact per attempt. Bashir Tutin has 4.40, a full yard, more than a full yard. And then to go along with missed forced tackles, he had a 143.2 elusiveness score. And
Hmm.
then another uh, metric that I do enjoy looking at is his breakaway percentage of 54%. I like me some Bashul too, and people like to talk about, oh, he doesn't, his vision is sometimes lacking. Fuck it. Teach that man, make a big enough hole for that man to have that damn runway, and not gonna need to worry about his
Get
motherfucking vision. I promise
get
you
that
that.
man in a zone running scheme and give him easy reads. Kind of a one cut and go. And I think depending on where he lands and if he can get coached up, I think he honestly has the biggest upside of like any of these running backs because not only is he like
Agreed.
strictly a running guy, he was also, I mean, not only is he a strictly, a rocket boosted, fast track guy playing running back. I mean, he has some real metrics behind him. He was third in elusive rating and 12th in missed forced tackles.
Oh yeah.
And also, he has 23 receptions last season, so he shows that he can, be utilized at least rudimentarily in the passing game. So I think the sky's the limit for this kid. I mean, he ran a 4.32, if I'm
Four
not
three two.
mistaken,
Four
at the
three two.
combine. So
Mm-hmm.
he's blazing. Get this guy in the space. Get this guy, with a sliver of daylight, and he's fucking gone. I mean, I was watching some highlights put out there by the who is it? The fantasy football, maybe astronauts,
Mm-hmm.
and he's stiff arming people into long runs, and he's just a very exciting guy.
Yep.
Maybe he doesn't always pick the right hole, and maybe he gets stuffed a fair amount, but get this guy some space. And that's what teams are looking for these days are long touchdowns, and with teams playing a lot of cover two and keeping the passing game close to the vest and not letting anything get over their heads with the deep safety.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, Running backs definitely could have a big role. Especially guys as explosive as he is.
And to just to finish off on Bashul, speed, yards after contact. The rest you can figure that shit out. Elusiveness to even throw in there. Speed,
Hmm.
yards after contact, elusiveness, and with a pretty good build to him. You throw that in together, you have a pretty good running back. Is Yes, he is RB 12, but he could once again goes back to tiers. He could have been easily in that. I could easily have see someone having him inside that RB, that top 10 spot if you really depended on what flavor. And I won't go into the rest of the the rest of my tiers, you'll have to check in into my rankings. Click the link in the description box to check the rest of the guys that I have ranked. But it's pretty interesting. Some that, one, just to throw it out there, and I'll leave the rest for everyone to take a look at. But I have my guy Corey Kiner as RB16. Uh, he's going to be in that tier 4 range, and he some what I really liked about him. He was a if you go back, and some people might not even know this, he was a LSU commit, and he was a LSU running back. He was at LSU initially before transferring to University of Cincinnati, and there were plays
Hmm.
from those days, and I will have to send you the clip. He juked, he went left, went back right, stiffed armed the fuck out of a defensive lineman. Mind you, this guy is only 5'9", 209. So you wouldn't think he have this much type play strength.
To me, he's
Stiff
like a
arm the
bowling ball.
I'm telling you, stiff arm the fuck out this defensive lineman to the ground, broke his shit, went the other way, and still kept going. I was like, Corey, kinda. I wasn't familiar with your game, my boy. Let me put you in my. Oh my god! And then I had to have my boy. I had to have him, and very highly up in my rankings. I love me some Corey Kiner. No, he is not going to wow you in his athleticism. He ran a 4.57 at 5'9". Once again, 209.
Hmm.
But what I do, he has grit. He has the thing that you want out of a running back. He has the balls to run through a motherfucker's face. He is, when it comes to making someone miss, being able to bounce off of contact, I really do like me some Corey Kiner, and that's going to be, you know, the the last one. I'm gonna leave the rest for y'all to check out. Go check out your boy rank because I worked really hard on this one, and we could talk about some receivers real quick. Rocco, I know we're coming a little weird. Look at what we're at, the 46-minute mark.
Oh yeah, man. We could
So
talk about some fucking running backs.
yeah, man, we can go days. And once again, tomorrow is the big day. All these can change, but nevertheless, I feel like I'm holding pretty strong with these rankings afterwards. Receiver wise, and I know I've been getting this literally all day since I dropped it. Some people absolutely love this shit, love this spicy take. But Jalen Royals, you know how I feel about him, Rocco. Y'all at this point should know how I feel about him. Wide receiver 4, stop playing with my boy. Hasn't been 100% this whole draft cycle. Still putting it on your motherfucking head and still having a great draft process. Love me some Jalen Royals at 6 foot 205. Ran a 4.41 at the combine. Once again, wasn't 100%. And what I kept coming back to his film was that this is a guy who could win at all three levels. He can beat you. He could beat you going around you. He could beat you uh, using his jack ability. He has
Hmm.
underrated route running. His hands technique to be able to beat press, whether that's getting physical with you on the line, using his hands to beat you off, or using his release package to get around you. And then to go about, he could beat you going deep with his deep speed. I love me some Jalen Royals. It was hard for me. Absolutely, actually, one of the most fun films out there. And he only played in 7 games
Hmm.
and went on to have 134 yards at that. He played out wide 77.9% of the time with 22.1% in the slot. So he shows that he can win outside. And then in the film, he had multiple clips of him winning inside. So that is really the big take with Jalen Royals as my RB4. Do you think that's a little spicy, Rocco? Let me know. Lay it on me, my boy.
It's a little spicy, a guy coming from a smaller school, but he looks really good on tape, and some of the metrics back it up. I mean, he had a 3 yards per route run, and that's basically like the golden ticket. If you have 3 or above, that correlates pretty strongly with NFL success. But you know, just what you're saying about what you see on tape. I mean, I see him, running away, destroying angles once he gets in the open field. And he
Hmm.
also has a little bit of a bully ball to him
He does.
for being for being a wide receiver.
Mhm.
Somebody in the group chat called him a slightly smaller AJ Brown, and you can kind of see it with some of the plays he makes. But um, to our guy Debro's point that came on last week, he was banged up throughout the whole process. But what he showed was that he's a lot more technical sound than a lot of speed guys. So for a guy that's coming from a small school to already be technically sound, get this guy in with an NFL coaching staff and an NFL training staff, and let this guy go to work. I think it'll be real interesting to see where he goes in the draft.
Mhm.
I think that'll kind of portend to let us know, what the NFL thinks about him, because there may be teams that can see him as their number two wide receiver or even better.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. I can definitely see that. And to one of the points that you noted towards his yards per route run against man coverage, he had a 3.8 yard routes per run with a grade of 80. And then against zone 2.72. So, one of the things I do when I look at my receiver evaluations is, can they win against man coverage? And if
Hmm.
they can't win against, or if I don't really see them uh, do it, and once again, everything when you're looking at these guys, it's film first, and then it's analytics, and then you
Hmm.
look at the stats, right? With Jalen Royals, I see him being able to beat man coverage easily, no matter what what level of the field it is, short, intermediate, deep. And but then he also has the smart mentalness to recognize when to sit in zones, and that shows also in his receiving grade in zone with a 74.9 and almost close to a 3 and yards per route run. So shout out to Jalen Royals. Another another big ticket guy that has gotten talked about in my rankings that either people have, and I would say there's a lot more than people who agree than disagree.
Hmm. Hmm.
But Elijah Badger is a name that I have very high in my list that people need to get very much hip to. Now, before I go into my little spiel, Rocco, let me know before these, I say about this last month or so, month and a half, or just get into player evaluations. How much of Elijah Badger did you know about?
I didn't know anything about him till very late in the process. I started hearing about him from you and from other podcasts where they were diving deep, like super deep.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I had not heard about him, until very late in the process. But
Mhm.
some of the things that we do like about him is, he's been used in a multitude of um, different schemes and used differently. Kind of like what we saw from DJ Moore.
Mhm.
There was a year where he was used as just a yards after the catch guy. There was years where he was used as the deep guy, and then he kind of put it all together in Chicago a couple years ago with Justin Fields. So that to me is the sign of a great wide receiver, a guy that can be used in a multitude of different ways. They also did it with Stephon Diggs. He was used as a deep guy, and then as his career evolved, he became more of the route running guy.
Mhm.
Getting open in the intermediate parts of the field.
Mhm.
So that tells me that he's coachable, and he's a quick learner. and he's got skills to play in a variety of different positions. And with those type of skills, he can get on the field faster because if they need somebody to go in, even if he's a later drafted guy, he's one injury away anywhere across the offensive wide receiver alignment from getting a shot at playing. So, the other thing I like is that he has a 2.96 yards per route runs. But I know he's your guy, so let me know if I'm off base here.
Let me talk about let me hype my G up a little bit. Let me hype my G up for y'all a little bit. So this is how I really started deep diving in Elijah Badger. First off, he's a transfer from Arizona State. What made me First off, I looked at his stats this year and I was like, damn, these are one thing that very much stuck out was his yards per reception, which was a 20.7. Yes, you very much heard that right. His yards per motherfucking reception was 20.7,
Whew.
right? He only has had two drops in 2 motherfucking years to go along with his Evanju. Look at his A dot, 17.3. These aren't little bitty passes that he's catching. These are deep down the field, hard catches. And he's still catching them motherfuckers at a high rate. To go along with 11 missed forced tackles, to go along with a 88.5 grade against man, and also a 3.67 yards per route run against man. That tells me this man is whooping ass all over the field. And then if you go back and look at his Arizona State days, where he was more of the yak guy, right? He was doing more of the short to intermediate. Yes, he had some plays down the field, but he was more of the short to intermediate guy to where
Mm-hmm.
he was using his yak ability very much so. I put on our Twitter page actually a clip of when he literally caught a ball maybe 15 yards downfield, proceeded to do a cut, made three guys miss at the same time and to get more yards. Elijah Badger might be one of my, if not the biggest sleeper of the wide receiver class. And he's not even on sleeper yet. That's the beautiful thing about it.
Oh
This
yeah,
is
in the
how
mocks I'll have to write him in.
like a lot he's not even on sleeper. So that should tell you how deep of a bag we're in here. I love me some Elijah Badger, and comfortably is in my tier three of guys, along with Kyle Williams, along with Jack Betch,
Hmm.
along with Torrey Horton, along with Tez Johnson. I really like these guys and what they're able to provide on the field. So yeah, that's how I have went about my process with Elijah Badger. I think he very much is going to be one of the people that I target heavily. I don't think he's going to be, unless you're watching this video and you're getting hip. And let's say it's only 3 rounds of a mock draft or 4 rounds of a mock draft. I think a lot of the times I'm going to be able to get him on waivers, and he's going to be my most added guy on waivers just for that specific reason. But we are coming low on time. Let's have what other wide receivers in here? Give us a few that you personally like on your end for tomorrow. To whether it's going to be draft capital, no matter the draft capital, or what guys do you particularly like, my boy?
um, well, I like the Iowa State guys. I think I'm
Of
really
course,
interested to see who gets drafted first. Um, Higgins
Higgins.
has that kind of prototypical size. There's discussions whether he can be an X or if he's more of that big slot.
Mm.
Um, but Jalen Noah has killed, the process since the offseason began. He was the best guy in Alabama. He killed at the combine. He's just kind of been working his way up. So kind of interested to see if Noel can kind of jump him at the combine, and that may change the way we kind of think of these guys. But I like both, and I think both are kind of in that range where they're late second or early thirds, which I think is just stealing because I think either of those are a superb value and can pretty quickly jump up to wide receiver two status. Very different guys, very different guys. As evidenced by them being on the same team and both of them having over 1,000 yards. One played a lot of X. I don't know if that's where he's going to play, in the NFL, but definitely a big-bodied receiver. A lot of people have comped to like a Michael Pittman and Jalen Noel, who can get down the field and who's just a great athlete and really strong at the catch point. So I'm interested to see where those two guys get drafted. And a guy that's near and dear to my heart, a guy that suffered an unimaginable tragedy on New Year's night, where everybody was bringing in the new year and celebrating life, celebrating making it through another year. Jack Besh, whose brother Tiger Besh died in the Bourbon Street terror attack, but it's not just because of his story why I love him so much. He's just a big, rocked up athlete. I think his natural position is probably going to be a big slot. I don't know if he has I don't think he has the speed to consistently win outside, but he's a good route runner. He's played inside and outside. He's, like I said, he's big and physical. Not super fast, but guys just kind of bounce off of him. Whether it be through the catch point or after the catch.
Yeah.
He's a big guy to bring down. May have the best hands in this whole class.
Agreed.
I was just kind of reviewing some more tape, in the last few days. I mean, everything that's close to him, those mitts are just taking it in, whether it's, he's scraping the ball right off the ground, taking it in, catching it, in stride, throwing behind him on the ground. He's snatching it up. And I think he only had one drop last year, so that kind of speaks to those hands. But
He's a bad motherfucker.
Yeah, he could find gaps in zones. He's gonna make a nice possession receiver. He could be a volume receiver depending on where he gets. And like I said, he suffered an unimaginable tragedy, but he's using that to kind of motivate him and saying his brother was the hardest worker he ever knew. So whoever drafted him is not just getting Jack Besh, they're also getting his brother's spirit with him. And, he's just an easy guy to root for. So I'm interested to see where he lands. Hopefully he lands somewhere where he can get some opportunity and somebody believes in him. But even if he goes lowly drafted, he'll be one of the guys I'm adding. And if he's a fourth, fifth, sixth round pick, guess what? I'm gonna be snatching him up in the fourth all freaking day because I just love that guy, and I think there's definitely a solid role for him to be found in the NFL.
I agree with a lot of the points that you pointed out for the players that you spoke on. With Jalen Noel, he actually ended up moving down in my rankings, but just one spot. Trey Harris ended up being moved ahead of him, but I still have Jalen Noel in my tier 2 of guys, and the reason why I moved Jalen Noel down my rankings was that in the overall group of the guys that I have ranked, he had I can't say the worst, but he had one of the worst yards after contact, yards after contact per reception with 4.2 of the group. And then a number that stuck out was he only made 3 people miss. Mind you, this is a guy that had 80 receptions, 1,194 yards, right? He only made 3 motherfuckers miss all year. All year.
He don't have that dog in him, huh?
Like that not that worried me a little bit. Just to don't get me wrong. I still think, to your point, he is a great route runner. He's tough. He's nasty. He'll go a bit there. He plays bigger than what
Hmm.
his actual stature is. But just looking at that, it was hard for me to not notice that. And then when you're looking at his yards per route run versus man, it's still not the worst. Is at 2.8, 2.18.
Hmm.
Then with a grade of 73. But where he makes his bread and his butter is he has a 3.51 yards per route run versus zone, and he has an 83.5 grade against zone. So he is a guy that has had better, or shown to have better, you take better advantage against zone coverage. One, because he's a very intellectual prospect. He's able to distinguish against what coverage is going on mid route, and then take that into his advantage. But nevertheless, him having only three missed tackles for us to go, along with he was used mainly in the slot. I could see him playing both inside and outside, having that versatility. But I think he most likely starts off his career in the slot, if a team already has their set of or pair of outside guys. But nevertheless, I still like me some Jalen Noel. And then on your Jack Betch um, point of view, I like him, man. He is my wide receiver 10. I
Dog.
think he also I think he also has that inside outside versatility to him. Some of the strongest pair of hands in this draft by far. And then I don't think he gets enough credit for being a good route runner and being the size he is and being able to run the routes that he's able to do. Once again, he's a guy who also had a stronger grade against the zone versus man, going at a 83.5 grade with 3.13 yards per route run against zone, compared to man, where he had a 1.79 yards per route run at a 72.4 grade. But nevertheless, I like me some Jack Betch. And he could be a very valuable asset for any team that's looking for some versatility or just a bigger presence in the slot, but also can give you that added size on the outside as well.
Let's go.
Hell yeah! And we have a few, we got a few. It's enough time to talk about maybe one or two guys. Give me, let's actually let's end the episode with one each prospect that we both like of this receiver group. Who do you have?
Um, that was kind of my guy, but if we're talking about some of the top guys, I really like Amika Abuka. I just think he is possibly already before we even before he's even a pro. I think he's the most professional route runner in this whole draft. A guy that's played and competed with some of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Frankly, he's shared the field with Marvin Harrison Jr.,
What you got?
Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and he played well with all of them on the field. So, a national championship, he's a winner, and just his ability to get open in the short and intermediate areas. He's a guy that reminds me of a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown. Just a very competitive route runner. And if he gets into a situation where he can be a target hog, and I think he, even on the low end of things, I think he's going to end up as a wide receiver one, but two. But in certain situations, he's also got inside outside versatility. But I think in the right situation, he can ascend to be one of the top receivers in the league.
I 100% agree with you on that one, and that's why he is my wide receiver too. Just because one of his superpowers that I think sticks out against every other receiver in this class is that he is one of the better blockers in this draft, better
Hmm.
and willing blockers in this draft. He has very nuanced route running to him, and I spoke on this. He has very deceptive speed. I think he's actually a better athlete than once again given. So I think with Amika Ibuka, once again, you kind of hit it on the head. He's been on teams with stars, dogs on him, and he's shown that he can compete. The guy that I will go off to be able to end the pod off on is Deontay Thornton. And when I was looking at some of this guy's numbers, it was bonkers to look at. Once again, I hate Tennessee's offense. It's purely shit. Fuck the whole thing. What they do is it just doesn't work out. But when you're looking at some of these numbers, I'll give you and because how my rankings are set up, they're dark. If it's one of the higher or highest data points for that particular column or field, it is a dark green for Deontay Thornton. I'm just going to give you off a few metrics, Rocco. He is 6'5", 205, ran a 4.3. He had a yards average average yard per reception of 25.5. 25.5 yards. He lined up outside 95.7% of the time. He had a 10.7 yards per reception, and then where he had an A dot of 16.5. So he's taking these deep shots down the field. He was also another guy that only had two missed tackles forced. Not going to really beat him up for that. He's a bigger build, but nevertheless, he had a grade of 3.22 yards per route run against zone, and then also a 75.8 grade against zone. What gives me a little bit of question is that his grade against man wasn't the best, but going at looking at his yards per route run against man, which
Hmm.
was a
Hmm.
3.47, I'm gonna take that. His overall grade, receiving grade, 80.6. This is a guy who is still very raw in his. I think I will almost go in the. I won't say very raw. But I won't because when I think of very raw or raw or no Diddy prospect, I think about Savion Williams. But
Hmm.
Deontay Thornton, if goes to the right team and developed correctly, he could end up being one of those Nico type esque guys that flies up the board quite quickly. And I can see him being a better pro than he was in college by far. And that's all my guys for my rankings for the wide receivers. If you want to know more about how I broke these guys down, you can always reach out to me on Twitter. You can find the actual tweet and reply back. I can chat with you. But those are my guys, Rocco, and I'm standing 10 toes down on my takes. If you got a problem with any of the rankings, once again, this is always opinion based. This is how I view my players. You can view your players the way you want to. And let's see at the end of the day who has a better hit rate. And I promise you, my track record will speak for itself. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to drop the mic, top shit. You know what I'm saying?
If
And
you don't
well,
like Huncho's rankings, fuck you.
I wish we fuck you. You know what I'm saying? Fuck you. You guys throw that in big bold letters.
Go fuck yourself.
But that has been our episode or today, and it's been a very fun one. I didn't think it actually brought me back to back awake because I was very much struggling, y'all, to stay. I didn't think when I woke up, I was like, "Yo, I'm tired as fuck." But I'm glad. I was very happy that we were able to get this video and tap in. We have a big day tomorrow, Rocco. If you guys are going to be anywhere, we're going to be in with our guys, Dynasty Bros. We're going to be on their draft call, going over picks. I'm going to be looking at my Dallas Cowboys, see what they do. You're going to be looking at your New Orleans Saints, looking at
Oh,
what
I'm
they're
gonna be
going to do
so
at their
pissed.
quarterback. We're going to have live reactions, man. And we're, it's going to be a fun day. And we're going to be back with y'all again this weekend to talk about it more. And also, we have a lot of rookie drafts starting. They're going to be clicking off. So we're going to be, have a little bit of tidbit with you. We have more news, big news. You spoke about it a little bit earlier on, but we have a big announcement to announce with you guys. We still haven't put ink to paper yet, so we don't want to speak on it. But nevertheless, we do have amazing news. It's a fun time at Fourth and Fantasy, and we have a lot more in store for y'all. Please don't think
Yeah.
this is the end. Please don't think we're done just because the draft is tomorrow. There's a lot more work to be done.
Oh, and we
Keep
got some of
tapping
the
in with us.
biggest. We got some of the biggest names in fantasy on the horizon to talk ball with us after the draft. So lock in with us, rock with us,
Okay.
and we'll rock with you. And what's
With
and what's our tagline? Hit them with it.
oh, your fantasy playbook to game winning drives, baby. Thank y'all again for all the support. Thank you guys for tuning in. Catch us tomorrow. Catch us wherever you can. That being said, Fourth and Fantasy, hope you have a great rest of your night.